Hi and welcome to another lecture in the course of short story, and here we are with another masterpiece by Hemingway, Cat in the Rain. And as we have been talking about Hemingway, we have discussed his theories of iceberg, his style of writing, his choice of words, his diction, and so on and so forth. So today we are going to look at one of his main important stories. And by the way, please, before you move on, go and read the text itself, because nothing will stand in the place of the text, of the original text. No summary, no analysis, no pamphlet. So please read the text itself, and then we will continue. So please pause the video and go. Okay, I suppose you have read the text, and let's move on. Let's see what happens in general in the short story. This is the plot summary. An American couple stood at a hotel near which was a war monument. The wife was looking through the window, and she saw a cat which was in the rain. The wife wanted to take the cat, that's why she left the room. As she went downstairs, she met the housekeeper. She liked him. When she went out, she understood that the cat wasn't already there. Thus, she returned to the hotel. She had a conversation with George, her husband, and showed her interest in changing her lifestyle. At the end of the story, the maid of the hotel brought a big cat to the wife from the parts of the housekeeper. So, as you have observed in reading the text, in reading the short story, there are no killing, no disappearance, no some supernatural power. Everything is so natural, so normal, and everything seems to be quiet. But here we see the genuinity, the innovation, the innovative style of Hemingway in writing his short stories. He never tells you the entire story. You should dig deep inside the story. You should find out other incidents and other events. So now it is your part to know what is going on beyond the text. One of the most interesting things in Hemingway's writing is his use of imagery. Imagery is the power, it is the machine of creating imagination. It's called imagery. So the use of imagery, of course, we have different types of imagery: this smelling, the tasting, the seeing, the imagery of hearing, and so on and so forth. So Hemingway was so innovative in using imagery. So the use of imagery, the way in which the weather is described. This is a quotation from the short story, from The Cat in the Rain. There were big palms and green benches in the public garden. In the good weather, there was always an artist with his easel. Artists liked the way the palms grew and the bright colors of the hotel facing the sea. This evokes the impression of happy times. You see in this quotation that everything is fine, like we are living in heaven. You see those green, tall palm trees, and we have that hotel in facing the sea. Everything is perfect. You have that soft breeze touching your cheeks and your face. It's amazing. The situation is amazing. It's like you're on a honeymoon and you're enjoying your time. So this is such a perfect scenery created by Hemingway. Then Hemingway describes an atmosphere that is wet, bleak, and lonely. He states, the motor cars were gone from the square with the war monument. Across the square, in the doorway of the cafe, a waiter stood looking out at the empty square. This evokes a feeling of loneliness or sadness. This is the astonishment. This is the perfection of writing in Hemingway. This is his own style and his own fingerprint. You see that paradox. In the beginning you see happy times, you see everything is perfect, everything is heavenly, and now you see that this heaven is lonely. It is so dark, bleak, and though it is so perfect, the place is so perfect, yet you cannot enjoy that place. So this is the paradox that Hemingway tends to create from time to time. We also have that color imagery. The opening paragraphs discuss all the green outside of Kitty's window, the green palm trees, the shiny green benches and table, and the public garden. All of the bright greens suggest the growth and vivacity of life just outside of Kitty's reach. While she is bored and feels lifeless inside the hotel and inside her marriage, life moves on outside. Again, we have this such colorful scenes in the story. We have such a great variety of different colors outside the hotel, and this represents the rush of the life, that the everything is moving on, not caring about individual problems and troubles. We have also the rain imagery. The story also contains many examples of rain imagery and the rain's effect on the setting and characters. While the rain causes a war monument to glisten and empowers the sea, it also forces humans realize their reality and think of how to change their life manners. Again, here we have such a great dependence on rain. He has such dependence on the symbolic meaning of rain. Rain means troubles sometimes, it means problems of life, it means depression. Of course, rain has such a negative connotations in European countries, in European and American cultures. Of course, not all of them, but this is the dominant picture. This is the dominant understanding. While in the Arabian countries like Iraq here, we really enjoy having rain. So rain in Iraq means happiness, it is rebirth, it is joy, it is pleasure, it is life. So it depends on the culture in which the text was written. As for the main characters, we have the American wife. Of course, we have two main characters. Number one, the American wife, American girl, and the title used by the maid and the padrone, Senora. So, by not naming her, Hemingway helps us ask how much this character is an American wife, a stereotype or reflection of a typical American wife in the 20s. So, Hemingway tries to give us a picture of the dominant type of women in the 20s in the United States. Of course, he tried to reflect the American culture in his short stories, and this is one of the typical characters in his writings, that of the picture of women. That she was so demanding, she was so materialist, she was so superficial, and she always tried to satisfy her wishes, desires, and material needs. So this is one of the characters that has such a negative meaning that reflects the type of woman in the 20s of the United States. So we also have George. George is one of the most realistic characters in this story. He is perfectly content with his reading. So George is reflected as an intellectual. He is such a reader. He is so scholarly. He is not attached to the materialism of this life. He is so detached from this life. He is so obsessed with his books and readings. And of course, this is in contrast with his wife. As for the minor characters, we have the housekeeper and the maid are the main characters. The cat is also considered a minor character as well. Minor character, of course, they play a role in a story, but they do not have such a great effect in the events of the story or novel. So the housekeeper and the maid and the cat, these three characters are the minor characters in this short story. As for the type of narrator or point of view, the narrator, a third-person omniscient narrator who narrates the story from the American wife's point of view. So here we have the third-person narrator who knows everything, who tends to be objective, who is supposed to be objective. But here again, Hemingway is being so tricky. He tries to give the point of view of woman at that time, yet from an objective perspective. This is so tricky. This makes us to believe this type of woman because he tends to make himself so detached, so objective, and he is not biased. Yet he is giving and presenting this materialist perspective of American woman. As for the type of conflict, we have the conflict here is person against society conflict, because the story was written after World War II, when people were struggling against the falling society. Again, of course, you as a reader, you may have other ideas concerning this type of conflict, but according to my understanding, that we have this type of person against society conflict because the woman is struggling with the society to become like her, like the society, because otherwise she would be critiqued and criticized or even rejected from the society, because it was such a capitalist, materialist, industrial society. As for the plot, we have 4 parts of the plot. Of course, we have other readings, some other critics and professors, they tend to divide plot into 6 or even 7 parts, but here I tend to make things easier, to be more comprehensible and understandable. As for the first part of the plot, we have the author depicts the 2 main characters of the story. There were only 2 Americans stopping at the hotel. So here we have the introduction of the scene. We have the introduction of the type of characters. They are 2 typical Americans. So this is the exposition. This is the introduction to the scene, to the characters, to the type of the story and events that we are facing. For the second part, conflict, it is the time when the wife becomes obsessed with a cat and intends to take it inside the room. This is the beginning of the conflict, when she observes that cat outside the hotel in the rain and she tends to take it inside. As for the climax, it is the debate with the husband. So that's the climax, when she asks her husband for a change in her life. She needs other things in her life. She needs some transition in this lifestyle that she is living. She is not content and she is not happy with the life she is living with her husband. So this is the time when the conflict and the climax of the story happens. And finally, the resolution, she announced her wish to have a cat. If I can't have long hair or any fun, I can have a cat. That's the time when they come into conclusion and into giving solutions to their problems by being content with having only one simple cat rather than that luxurious life. As for the themes, we have so many themes. As I told you, that Hemingway is unique in giving so many ideas, so many themes in his short stories. That's why it is not enough to only number 3, 4, 5, or 10 themes. You may number or mention tens of themes in the stories of Hemingway, because he always tends to hide his main ideas beyond the words and beyond the text. So I'm going to mention here only some few themes which are easily observed in the short story. Americans versus Americanism. Hemingway supports the American people and not Americanism, American policies. And according to the quotation here, there were only 2 Americans stopping at the hotel. So Hemingway, he loved his people, he loved his country, but he was not happy with the foreign policies of the United States, especially during the First World War and the Second one. And he tried to propose solutions by teaching his readers to have some solutions in their life and to find alternatives to the problems of the society and to reject the American policy. We have also lack of communication. For example, Cat in the Rain was written in the 20th century. During that period, many other writers based their works on the consequence of the war, describing the result of that tragic period upon the man's life and man's feelings. That's why readers might find out that there was a lack of communication between those 2 married people. So almost you find this lack of communication in all Hemingway's stories, that there is some obstacles, there are some walls between the characters. There is such a lack of communication in among characters in the story, because it was written in such a historical and political context in which people were obsessed with the materialism of life. They lacked communication and they could not easily communicate with each other during that time. So this problem is so obvious in the text of Hemingway. As for Mannerism, we have Mannerism, another theme in this story. In a way, George's character represents everything the wife wants to escape from. Her wish list is full of material goods, which can be seen as at odds with her husband's fondness of intellectual fulfillment. He's perfectly content with his reading. This is interesting. We have such a paradox, and we have such a contrast between the wife and the husband, George. The wife, the woman, is so obsessed with material things. She loves to get another lifestyle and to reject the type of life that George is obsessed with. George is such an intellectual, scholarly reader who rejects that superficial life, while the woman, the American woman, is obsessed with the life and its beauty. Of course, this is such a contrast between the husband and the wife. And we have Mannerism of the hotel keeper. He shows his seriousness, politeness, and dignity. Again, the housekeeper, the hotel keeper, is the type of the character that the woman loves. He is such a serious, polite, and he has such a dignity in his manners, which seduces any woman. And for example, we have some examples from the text. The padrone. The padrone is an Italian word for the hotel keeper or the housekeeper. Of course, this is such a sophisticated word to describe a distinct person who is so handsome and serious. The padrone bows to her from his desk. The padrone made her feel very small and at the same time really important. So this is the type of mannerism that any woman likes. She liked the deadly serious way he received any complaints, his dignity, his all, heavy face, and big hands. We have also dissatisfaction. She's unable to say what exactly is making her dissatisfied in her life. Instead, she harps on a multitude of small things. Her dissatisfaction with the life she leads with her husband is particularly problematic because, like the cat trapped under the table in the rain, there is not really any way to escape. So we feel such a dissatisfaction in that woman, in the wife, and of course this is the typical woman at that time, and this is the dominant behavior and the dominant theme in that society. No one was satisfied with his life. No one was satisfied with what he had, because we have that type of ideology of capitalism, of consumerism, that whatever you have, it is not enough to be happy. This is the type that those companies try to trick people to buy more goods and to buy more things. This is called consumerism. So people were not were not satisfied with what they had, with their lives. So they needed more. They were greedy, to have more things, and this shows the dissatisfaction in the entire society. As for the symbols, we have so many symbols because Hemingway depends on symbolism in his writings, because he tends to hide the major parts of his story beneath the surface water. So he compensates that hidden part with using and with depending on symbols. The title, Cat in the Rain. As for symbolism, cats are symbolic of rebirth and resurrection per their 9 lives. Because they are nocturnal, they are also associated with darkness. Darkness often goes with fear, the unconscious, and things that are hidden. Cats are also symbols of mystery and magic, and as aforementioned, but also unpredictability and even healing. So cat here symbolizes so many things. It might stand for rebirth, for resurrection. It also may stand for darkness, for fear, for hidden fears, and so on and so forth. So this is up to the reader to choose which one is suitable with the text, with his own readings. This is the freedom that the reader has while reading the Hemingway's stories. So here we have different meanings for cat in this story, and it is up to the reader which one he chooses. As for rain, stands for life, difficulties, and troubles. Again, this is something particular for Western American and European countries, while in Arab societies, rain is such a nice and optimistic thing. We have a hotel. It is a symbol of society, for it gathers people from different nationalities and attitudes. It also signifies alienation, where nobody knows his neighbor or any other resident in the hotel. They all are strangers. So the hotel represents the entire society. It represents the strangers of the society, the alienation of the society, that nobody knows anyone in the society. For example, here we are living and we hardly know our neighbors. Everyone is a stranger in this society. It is like a hotel that people tend to move from one house to another. They do not have such a permanent residence, and that's why the society has become like a hotel. We have American wife turns into American girl, gives way to childish wishfulness, as she left by the maid who has found her trying to catch just a cat in the rain. So again, as mentioned previously, this is the type of woman we have in that time in the United States. They tend to be girlish. They tend to be childish. They they do not have that mature behavior in their attitudes, in their life. That's why they tend to be girlish, because they think that the more girlish and childish they are, the more beautiful they will become. And of course, this is one of the effects of the capitalism and industrial revolution on changing the ideas of beauty in the minds of people. So thank you very much for keeping up to this moment. Thank you very much for listening. Please stay tuned for other analysis, for other texts of Hemingway. Thank you very much. Stay tuned. Bye bye.